Gunnar Habitz. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Tell me about your background. How did you first come to Australia?
First, I came to Australia by cruise ship. So I've been living for 3 months in New Zealand 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And then I realized that in order to see New Zealand from outside, it's best to take a cruise. There are beautiful fjords. And then from there, in order to make that happen, I realized that the cruise ship typically would then also go to Australia. And I ended up in Sydney. And my brain already told me that that is a city of a lot of fantastic IT companies who have their head office for Asia Pacific over there. And so that's how I came and realized also with my own eyes that it's a beautiful place and country to be, and Sydney is a wonderful city to be in. So I came by cruise ship first, and then I studied for 2 months leadership here, and then a bit later I found the right job that got me sponsorship visa, and then I flew in from my home in Switzerland to Australia on a one-way ticket.
There is something fascinating about your experience. You spent over 10 years in different IT roles across Europe, and I believe each one taught you something new. You started in IT and then moved into sales management. You went to other Europe cities like London, Venice, and Prague. You weren't just seeing the site, you were connecting people to experiences. When you moved to a new country like Australia in 2016, you carry all of that with you. And I mean, not just the skill, you brought the mindset, you brought the perspective. And yeah, I know that every new city challenge you, you had to adapt, learn fast, and communicate with people from different cultures. You learn to stay flexible when everything felt unfamiliar, and you become comfortable in a situation where nothing was certain. So, and at the same time, you had to start from zero. You build relationship from scratch, even when you didn't know anyone in the room. And yeah, I guess that kind of resilience comes from years of navigating change in your life. And honestly, that's what makes your story so compelling. You didn't just survive those transitions, you go through them, and you learn how to bring people together, no matter where you were in the world. And yeah, and that ability has become one of your strongest advantages. So Ghana, thank you for your contributions to the world.
Thank you so much for this very kind summary, but you're right, because born in Germany, moved to Switzerland, living at the same time in Czech Republic, and then I studied English in New Zealand early on in 99 for a couple of months to then return in 2016 and then moved to Australia, if you count it together as 5 countries. And the beauty in moving to another place is that nobody knew me beforehand. When I came to Sydney as a tourist, I really didn't know anyone. When I returned 2 months later as a student to do leadership studies at the Australian Institute of Management, I played strategic networking online and offline. So when I arrived, I already had a range of people I could talk to, thanks to the power of LinkedIn, who I then met. I found places like meetup groups, Internations, the world's largest expert network, where I could connect with different type of people from different walks of life. And of course, studying at a vocational learning capability like that advanced diploma of leadership and management helps also to learn about the place. I've done even a funny thing. Instead of coming for 2 months or 3 months here and grab furnished apartment to stay there all of the time, I didn't want that. I wanted to explore the different lifestyles. I wanted to find out how it is to live at a beach, how it is to live in a high-rise building, because in Europe you wouldn't have that in the center of the cities. What about the historical houses, maybe not renovated? So I spent some time at 12 different Airbnbs. So that when then one day the institute says, they said, I apologize, but this course doesn't take place where we wanted. It was a 2-day unit, but next time will be in a half year. I said, well, I won't be there. And then they said, we can do it online. And I said, I don't travel across the world to do an online training that every institute can do it.
Mhm.
And then the response was, we do it in Adelaide. Wonderful. Never been to Adelaide back then. So it's maybe not the top city in Australia in the view of foreigners. So then I went to Adelaide. And as a little thank you, because it was also my birthday, they gave me another course in Melbourne. Beautiful. So this type of flexibility was the main driver, paired with curiosity in the experience of others, how I built my network.
Yeah, Adelaide is such a beautiful city. I had a guest last week on the show, Wee Hosh. He is
Mhm.
the leadership on this industry, and he live in Adelaide, and yeah, he familiar with the area. So yeah, I think Adelaide is a beautiful city from my point of view.
Surely is.
So looking back at the first day you arrived in Australia with no local contacts or network, what piece of advice would you give to your past self?
Prepare. Not arrive with not knowing anyone. It would be a little bit too naive to just travel in the purpose of potential move without knowing anyone. You can do it as a tourist when you only go for a couple of days, not a problem, because the experience is about touristic, so that's fine. But if the idea is to learn about the place for potentially moving, it's better to prepare. And that's not too difficult to do. And I wrote articles about that. Simply look into the relevant pieces of social media, like LinkedIn, especially, because there you can see where people are from. It's very easy to make connections on that one, particularly in places like Australia, where LinkedIn is very dominant in terms of professional networking. I could easily find out suitable people in my industry. I simply reacted on their content, connected with some when it was maybe relevant. Also, I worked at a company in Europe at HP, so I could really think there were some HP people over here. So that was the way how I made my connections. And one example would be a person from background from Egypt, and I traveled to Egypt, and he
Mhm.
worked at HP in a similar role that I've had. So then we found a very good match online. We said, okay, I'm coming to Sydney next week.
Mhm.
Let's meet up. And of course, it doesn't work always, not with urgency, but as I had 2 months' time, then I simply met him after a couple of first weeks over here. And instead of meeting in the city where most people who come to Australia or come to Sydney would hang out, he said, no, 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 let's meet in the office, which was more outside, and
Mhm.
let's go there where locals are going. And that was beautiful, particularly as Sydney is a collection of villages that all have a separate, a different character. Not forgetting that Sydney also, like Melbourne, is a city of different type of background where people are coming from in terms of their heritage. That means you can taste so many different beautiful types of food, and sometimes you feel you're in a piece of Asia or in a part of Europe, and this mix was so refreshing. That was for me a way how to build connections.
So LinkedIn is the most dominant platform in Australia. You said it, is that right?
From a professional standpoint, yes. From professional social media, yes. And overall, LinkedIn has more than 1 billion people out of the 8.5 that are living in the world. So then who's not in on LinkedIn is not in business,
Mhm.
as simple as that.
What was the hardest part about moving to Australia without knowing anyone?
The hardest part maybe for me was to realize being there for a planned 6 weeks, which turned out to be 9 weeks, and then I returned for another one, was that some of the people I like to have around me were pretty far away. I would not say that Australia is far away at the end of the world, but it feels like the main part of the world is far away.
Mhm.
And that, of course, after a while, when you're not used to Zoom-related calls like we do now, that was the difficult part. So sometimes I already had maybe 3 weeks where my wife and I would not be together, but this was the first time to do it really long. That was the challenging side of it. But after a while, what can you do? So they need to overcome that. And the beauty was also there coming new to a place which was exciting, and where I met a lot of people and learned about the place and traveled a little bit. I went in the first 2 months, I went to Adelaide, I went to Canberra, I went to Melbourne, I went to outside of Sydney. So it was not a boring time. So it was not like a 9 to 5 situation for 2 months. So it was adventurous, and that, of course, makes it exciting.
I have a friend who lives in Western Australia, somewhere in the Perth area. And when he first arrived, he felt completely alone. And he didn't know any single person, and no one showed him how things work in Australia. He still remembers landing from his flight, carrying his bag, and suddenly realizing he had absolutely no network, no family, no friends, and no co-workers, and everything felt unfamiliar. Even small things like where to buy good food were hard. Bigger things like rental rules, opening the bank account, and transportation were confusing too. And for him, the first few weeks were very hard. He had to handle everything on his own, and he learned basic tasks step by step. And someday he wondered if he made the right choices. But he tried to stay positive and reminded himself that the beginning is always the hardest. And instead of hiding at home, he pushed himself to explore the city. He started visiting local markets and chatting with shop owners. And later he joins community sport groups just to meet with people. And that was when things started to change. He realized he wasn't the only newcomer trying to figure things out. And yeah, through that group, he met locals who gave him useful tips about the areas. I mean, the good areas to explore and the bad areas to avoid. And someone also taught him how to use the public transport properly. And yeah, week by week, uh, my buddy kept learning, and he learned shortcuts around the city and eventually made a small group of friends. And now, when he looks back to his journey, he is glad he kept going because for him, the difficult journeys in the beginning helped him go the most after that. You build a network from scratch, and what mindset or strategy help you grow trust and connection one coffee at a time, as you described
Mhm.
on your website? What do you mean by that? One coffee at a time.
Good catch. So one coffee at a time, or one thing at a time, is some kind of English language saying if you do something which cannot be all achieved at once, but
Mhm.
in portions, in phases, in steps. So therefore, I have a series on LinkedIn where I interviewed 88 people for a coffee.
Mm.
And also it fits this one coffee at a time. I just published episode number 88 together. So my observation, how I could make that that whole thing happen, what was the driving force behind? I realized early on, simply because I had been living in some countries beforehand, I realized that Australia is far away, and it's a mix of people from everywhere. So I say it's a collection of freedom seekers, where everyone wants to do the best what they can do, and most people came here whenever, maybe over generations. So there's no sense to tell them this is how it works in Germany or Switzerland, which was what I knew best, because it's not relevant.
Mhm.
So instead of telling my direct European experience, I thought I rather am curious what brought them there, what the experience was, similar as you asked me as well, and then figure out to connect the dots. Not to tell them that maybe in Switzerland the garbage collection would be better, because the mindset in Switzerland is to not only recycle but even reduce purchases and prevent things to happen so that you do not need to collect the garbage. But this mindset is not here, and the country is different and it's larger and all of this one. You cannot necessarily compare things. So therefore, rather, I thought being curious, figuring out what people have, active listening technically means using 2 years more than 1 month. And then when I realized, as you're typically in situation not just by yourself, but listening to one person at the event from here and then listening to another person at the event over there, I sometimes took the chance to connect people together. Because one person might need something, the other one person has something, but they do not know from each other. And I became basically the person to connect others. So then when you treat this type of helpful networking like paying into karma, so then one day something comes out in whatever shape of surprise form we don't know. So being of help, that was the main thing. And that's how also I thought when I needed work, obviously, I need to explore the workplace. I didn't ask anyone, hey, do you have a job? Is your company sponsoring? Not at all, because that wouldn't help either. But then when it came to the discussion, I told them what I could do, and I asked them how this type of experience that I've had would be phrased in the best way in Australia, being different. It doesn't matter where you go. If I would go, let's say, travel or consider working in Canada, for example, which was on my list initially, instead of Australia, then I would simply try to learn how workplace works over there. The worst thing what you can do is to come to a country, apply for jobs in the same way as you would do in your home country. Rules are different, and therefore it's better to find out how it works and simply be of service, show curiosity, interest in people, and be helpful. That I think was the main thing for that.
Yeah, I think it is very important to make connection with the people, especially when you are the newcomer coming to Australia. So yeah, maybe at the beginning it was so hard because you didn't know anyone, as I mentioned before. But yeah, it's just such a new experience for you, such a new learning for you to connect with people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I built my network in real life network, but of course also reflected on social media, which later also this type of social media activities, particularly on LinkedIn, later helped me to build a business around that. And from this side business of a consultant in social media, particularly LinkedIn, I published 2 books about it. I wrote 369 episodes about it every week, more than 7 years. I got a job at Hootsuite about it. It started from exactly that.
Gunnar, today you work as a content strategist, author, social selling educator, and a strategic partner manager. How would you describe what you do now at a high level?
I'm connecting people.
Mm.
If you remember Nokia, the phone company back in the days, that was exactly their slogan, connecting people. So in my role as senior partner manager here at Active Campaign, that is software for email marketing and CRM, and chatbots and AI and everything, my role is to find marketing agencies who can utilize the power of our software together with their services to serve their clients. That needs for me to understand agencies and their business. The clients of agencies need to understand, and my own company and product. So that is the challenging and very rewarding part of it. I always said for me in working in partnership is for me like putting the glue in between. Most people don't know that 75% of the world trade is done with partnerships. From the simple example of when people do not know it, then I say, do you like milk? Do you drink milk? And people said, yeah. Okay, I said, but do you drink milk directly below the cow? No, they go to supermarket. But all of the chains in between, that is the technique, that is a partnership channel. And that's what exactly I like, to understand all of those in the middle and serve this from a bigger scale. That's the part that I like, because it's not just selling something directly to a direct customer, but having those in between in mind. So that's my role.
How does a typical day in the life look like for you now? I mean, you balancing your work at a company, writing, coaching, and building your personal brand at the same time. What's your response to that?
Yes, correct. I do it at the same time. step by step. So when we take my corporate role, I don't see it as a 9 to 5 because it typically starts during the day working in an American company. When it's American afternoon, it's Australian morning. So I can still reach some colleagues that I need for help, or I can check reporting, whatever it is, to prepare for my day. And then as soon as I finish my day, where I talk and have calls with agency owners across the region in Australia, New Zealand, in India, in Singapore, Hong Kong, wherever, then at the end of the day, I might have a team call with my team in Europe. So that it's spanning the whole time quite a lot around that. And I help those, learn from those agency owners and help them to serve clients that they have with our software. So that's the day to day. Sometimes I also take the chance to take a block of time to write a book. So in that sense, I published 28 of them. And I would sit maybe for 6 weeks to write one book, not doing work time, but I really enjoy starting the day with writing 30, 45 minutes really in a block of time, only for writing. And when I finished before the work starts, then I already have the feeling that I achieved something. And that's good. That helps me very well through the day because I know that already something is done. Sometimes I also work in the evening and write in the evening or build a personal brand, working on LinkedIn. That always happens. And then occasionally also some people come and they need help for writing and publishing their books. So this year I had about 12 books to see the light, where only 2 of them were mine, but the others are from other people. So yeah, and there's always a good mix to make that happen. Even I'm on a board of director in a hotel. That's good to learn governance and leadership from the very top. And that gives me also a place in the city where I can meet with other people.
So you spend also your time for journaling, is that right?
I do, maybe not as consequent as I should do. There are some people who write their journals in a book of paper. I'm a big fan of writing with a pen myself when it comes to ideation and concepts. But I want to have everything typed in after a while. So whatever I have electronically, at least is captured.
My typical day is pretty simple. I wake up in the morning before the sunrise, and the first thing I do is stretch up a little and make up my bed. And then I head to the bedroom and brush my teeth. And after that, I wash my face and take a quick shower. And once I'm done, I throw on some clothes and make myself a cup of tea. And then I step outside for a light morning walk around the park. The park location was behind my house. And the air is cool and quiet. The sun is just starting to peek over the trees. And yeah, as I walk, I can hear a few birds starting their morning songs. There aren't many people out there early, just usual older couple taking their walk. And after I finish in my lab, I slow down and take a minute to catch my breath. When I get home, I get ready for my work and start researching about the guests for my podcast. I like learning about their backgrounds, so I know exactly what to talk about during conversation. And around 2 p.m., I make my first meal of the day, except on Friday and Saturdays. And after that, usually I keep working on my projects or run events. And yeah, after I'm done, I usually take some time to unwind on the couch at my home. And if I'm really in the zone, I keep working until late evening. And before bed, I take a warm shower if I feel like it. And then I spend a little time reading through my phones. And once I start getting sleepy, I turn off the light and try to get a good night's sleep so I can do it all over again tomorrow. It's nothing fancy, Gunnar, but yeah, I would say the routine totally works for me.
Good, good one. Yeah, and some of the elements that I also do, but I simply skip them. And I try that every day is a little bit different to keep certain rhythm, but keep flexibility.
Yeah. Why do you choose write so many books on personal developments, habit, social selling, and similar topics?
Valid question. When I have done my high school certificate with the age of 18, then I had a bad day. My teacher told me, Gunnar, I know you can do better, and I'm confident one day you will write a book. That's a while ago. Later, when I studied at the university, I met a professor who said, where I actually also helped him in his institute, and that was about computer science. And he said, Gunnar, you will never have an academic career. And I wondered, what's wrong? And he said, you write too bloomy. It needs to be dry.
Mm.
But okay, well, that tells me something. I can write, but just not boring academic.
Mm.
And he back then wrote and published already 12 books. I helped him a little bit with researching and so on. So I've been on the book publishing in the view of observing an author and helping a bit and learning how that works. And then later I had the chance, as I also have been a tour guide on the side during university. Some people would serve in a bar, but I wanted to explore other countries. So then I worked as a tour guide. And I figured out that most travel books were not researched well enough in the view of someone who really knows an area well. So I would go from Hamburg to bring tourists to London, to Amsterdam, to Rome, even once to Venice every year for Carnival, but mostly to Prague. And therefore, I realized the books were not updated. I offered correcting them, which was the first contract I got, to correct a book of 32 pages, where the facts were simply outdated.
Mm.
And from there, two publishers asked me to write a book for them. And that at the end became 21 travel books, two hotel books about historical hotels, and one fairy tale, second one coming next week. And the rest are more self-published books about LinkedIn, two of them, personal development and habits. Habits because it's my last name.
You know what really blows my mind? Uh, I've been thinking about human potential. I always wonder what makes people do extraordinary things at the same time. Is it because passion, need, or something deeper inside of them? And I think it's a made of curiosity and greed. Yeah, every time I see someone push their limit, I check my own boundaries. Maybe we all have hidden strengths that appear when we are tested, and some people find it through hardship, and others find it through ambition. The paths are different, but the result can be the same. So yeah, I read about people changing their life at ages many will call too late. And yeah, people like, the podcaster Visual, he changed his life at 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. They always amaze me. It's like we all have a spark inside. It waits for the right moment to ignite. And when it does, the result can be amazing. And I often wonder how much comes from mindset and how much comes
Hmm.
from opportunity. Could anyone reach greatness if they truly believe, or do circumstances matter more? And I think it's a bit of both. Maybe that's why human achievement story is so fascinating from my side. And yeah, it's unpredictable. Every story shows that potential exists in all of us as a human beings.
Good point, especially as when you mentioned testing the boundaries, and that is
Mm.
often unlocking something which otherwise wouldn't exist. When I remember, in a typical way of some people are working, including myself, if you observe your last year, take a moment of 2 months, that would be just normal 8 weeks. 8 times Monday, 8 times Friday, 8 times weekend. You go to work, you finish work, you do exactly as written as you mentioned. But then sometimes life wants to test us. That's what happened then when I faced a layoff after 16 years at HP, came to Australia, thought I can study leadership. And these 8 weeks were completely different. Different location, different people, different weather, because Europe was preparing into springtime, Australia was heading into winter. Um, Completely different seasonality, festivities, all different, and amazing 8 weeks of growth for mindset, for culture, and for interaction with other people. So then, yes, without that initial layoff in end of 2015, maybe I would be still 10 years and more at the same company. But life would be pretty boring in comparison, I would say so.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm grateful for the chance that I got.
Yeah, I love that. You talk a lot about building habits, not just for productivity, but for long-term success. How do you explain habit building and why is it so central to your philosophy?
I recognized one thing. If you do something more often than just once, things can get better. I learned that from my father, who ran a company for 42 years, that he would say, in German, he would say, Übung macht den Meister, which is often translated into practice makes perfect, but that actually is a wrong translation. It's rather about that you learn to become better, not perfect, but better towards a mastership. Not the best, but at least gradually, step by step, better. There are many books about habits, and I found one of those, which was The Power of Habit, that was in bookshops advertised in this period of time when my wife and I traveled in New Zealand, and I started to reconsider life, what else I could do. And I figured out that despite my life at that moment was not based on the same habits what I described beforehand, it was out of control, but that is also unlocking possibilities. So then I looked more and more into books about habits simply by the name connection, that is my last name. And maybe the most famous one would be Atomic Habits from James Clear, who also has its own 3-to-1 newsletter, as it's called, which is an atomic small newsletter. And I always knew I wanted to write something about it. How did I come to that? This year in April, on Easter Saturday, I was sitting at a park bench in early evening in Sydney at the beach, and I wanted to read a book from an American author. The book is called Discipline. I thought, coming from German and Swiss background, talking about reading something about discipline is actually good. Maybe I can learn a thing or two. And now he enticed people to write what he calls mini books, so books up to 100 pages. And I thought, good, I will write one. The topic I knew was about habits, but then I didn't really know what would be my take on it, because there's so many big books about it. And what I came up with was my own structure, that I would put it into 4 phases. Particularly when I looked into my life, I realized that sometimes you need to make a pause before you can change something. Because out of the ordinary day-to-day world, not much is changing. The pause can be put on you, like I had 3 times layoffs, and the kind of safety net of the perceived safe job is gone. And then you need to be much more creative, but of course with all risk involved. But that is a pause that comes from external. You can also create an internal pause. Like here in Australia, we're heading into festive season, call it Christmas, whatever, but the business slows down. So that means people now start thinking about, what do I want to do different next year? So these type of pause is helpful. And then you need to plan what could be done differently. How can you observe yourself or get feedback from others? And after that planning component comes the practice to do something, not everything. You cannot change yourself completely, but when you change maybe only a little bit, figure out how that works. Think about getting better fitness. Doesn't need to mean going to the gym or something, but at least to do a tiny thing then regularly, or you stack habits together. That's also possible. And my favorite example, my wife gave me earlier this year a little thing that I can use for brushing teeth. I mean, brushing teeth is one thing, but to clear the tongue, you better don't do with a toothbrush, but there's some other thing to get that off. And I could do this extra, but then I wouldn't do it. So therefore, I use the power of habit stacking to say, every time I brush my teeth, I also do that. And that really is working. When I'm in a rush, whatever, I said, no, stop. This half minute for that needs to be there. This habit stacking makes sense. My father used to go to opera very often. And for him, habit stacking means to enjoy a good schnitzel after the opera.
Mm.
It's not healthy to eat late, I know that, but that was his way of habit stacking. So that's the practice part. And then what I'm adding in my book to the habit discussion is partner. So you need to have accountability partners. You can try to change your life by yourself, but it's not easy. And a partner doesn't need to be partner in life or family or whatever, or close friend, but accountability partners. They can be someone from not in the immediate close circle, but around there. People from work, people from networking, whatever. And therefore we have it: pause, plan, partner, and practice. So this is my 4P model that I wrote in my book, Happy Habits. And it's full of life stories that I've had, but not only mine. I have selection of a dozen of people who also share their view and their experience in improving habits. It's not just me.
Which do you think matters more, building your personal brand or making connection, especially in the modern world?
It's a question of order of things. So if the personal brand doesn't say anything,
Mhm.
then why to connect with others? If someone tries to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would say 96% don't put personal message on, which is sad. For the 96%, I need to find out why they want to connect with me.
Mm.
I'm not working at Yellow Pages so that I would accept everyone, like back in the days. So then I need to figure out what the people want, why they connect with me. When their profile says nothing, I simply reject it. And that's the thing. So therefore, the personal brand technically is what people talk about yourself when you're not in the room. And that works online so well. If somebody tries to reach out on Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter what it is actually, and their profile says nothing, then I need to protect my network against intruders.
Yeah.
So then I'm very strongly rejecting people. And in LinkedIn, you can at least say, I do not know the person, which after a while is adding up to someone's reputation. So I do not like these type of people on it, so I don't need them. And therefore, the personal brand is important that you can see on a LinkedIn profile within 2 seconds. It's
Mm-hmm.
enough, maybe three, that is someone who knows what they're talking about. It's
Mm.
enough, really, the top part of it without scrolling down. Easy, even faster than checking a CV of someone. So therefore, personal brand is important that it looks professional and looks current. No need to post every day, but at least it looks like the person knows what they're talking about. They are professional. That's good. And
Mm.
then you can connect with someone. So I had someone reaching out to me and they only had 2 connections. I mean, sorry, they might know someone better in real life
Mm-hmm.
who are keen to connect with them than a stranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I give you an example. A couple of years ago was around the COVID time frame when people started to do more of this. Then I had a backlog of more than 700 people who just connected with me. And typically LinkedIn disappears after a year. But just think about it. 700 people. If you want to just check someone, figuring that out what they want, and then maybe accept them, but also add a line that some dialogue is there. That would take me maybe 5 minutes per person, maybe 3 minutes per person. So it would take me many, many, many hours to go through the backlog of 700. If
yeah.
those people would simply write something that is relevant and not a copy, then that's a shortcut to get into someone.
I think we make a connection last week. Is that right?
Hmm.
You connect with me, yeah, Gunnar. So after that, I replied to your conversation to the DM. Yeah, I said, oh, this is Gunnar. I just interviewed him before that. So yeah, we make a connection very, very fast. So how do you think
But
social selling and personal branding will change in the next few years?
so I thank you for doing this. And also, you studied a little bit about what I'm doing, and that is good.
Mm.
So how else would you be able to figuring out who you want to have on your podcast and asking questions?
Mm.
So I felt that from the first moment. So therefore, I've been happy to connect with you and being on the podcast. So how it will change? The tricky thing these days is that a lot of content on social media, especially LinkedIn, is influenced by or written by AI.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do on LinkedIn is to utilize bots for commenting or for direct outreach. When I see that someone is not talking to me directly, but using AI or a bot or anything, then I find it kind of disrespectful. Let me tell you a story how I mean disrespectful. One day, it was just around the COVID days, I worked at a risk management software vendor, and they wanted to reach out to the CIOs and the IT management of airports in the world. Already had many airports, so that's fine as clients. So it's very relevant. But what they thought was to send messages to those CIOs of airports in Europe out of LinkedIn profiles from a marketing agency somewhere offshore. But these people were just fresh from university. So
Fresh
imagine
graduate.
this. Yeah, imagine this. A high-level manager of an airport
Mm.
who has that big risk from an IT standpoint gets an outreach from a complete junior. That tells this CIO something, that the vendor doesn't take the respect to recognize the experience level of that potential buyer, and instead treating them like a small business. That was disrespectful. I thought they would simply reject, so it was not successful. Then I thought, what else can I do? I looked at one of the cities where I actually grew up in Germany and figured out on LinkedIn who else is working on the campus somewhere at the airport. The city is not large, 570,000, but still, it has a decent airport. And I found someone from primary school I've been with in the past. Maybe didn't talk to him for 10, 12 years, but still remembered him, who's somewhere working. So I reached out to that guy and said, hey, do you know this person from the management of the airport? And he did. So then he could foster an invitation. So that was much, much better, a type of a handshake compared to an outreach like this. So we are bombarded with this. We are bombarded with direct messaging, which feel irrelevant or from someone else. I had someone who reached out to me by phone, and there was a voice, spoke like normal human, but was not, was an AI voice,
Yeah.
telling me exactly, to be clear, I'm not a human, I'm a bot on, who is reaching out on behalf of whatever, business coach. I felt very offended. Why can this person not talk to me directly? And my response was, okay, let me connect you with my bot. Because if they don't take a human to me, they don't deserve to talk with me. That's as simple as that. And I see more and more coming this way. So if you see people who use commenting tools on social media or even sending messages, you don't know if it's them, if it's a bot, if it's a VA, and that is losing the one element that we have as humans, and that is trust. That's bad. So finding out what's real and what's fake, that is a challenge over the next couple of years.
What do you consider your most meaningful achievement so far?
That's a very valid question. In the earlier days, when I spent 4 years in a political role in a council parliament in Germany, I would say there's still a place where the highway ends, it gets into a normal street, and as a cyclist, I always wondered why the cars simply can't stop and watch that there's people, pedestrians, and cyclists. And I helped to decide to realize one thing. You should paint the cyclist way in red, what is in Germany normal, across the highway exit, then the cars automatically would stop. And it would reduce conflict for accidents. And that exactly happened, and it's still there. So therefore, that was maybe the most meaningful thing I've done with impact.
So, Gunnar, for someone starting fresh in your country and career with no network, what is the first step would you recommend to start building trust, habits, and a lasting network?
I would say find people for a network that need to be there. Reach out to those which maybe are experts in visa questions. well knowing they want to sell their services. There are also people, and I know this here from Sydney, who help migrants to find on their feet. So it was one of my coffee series where I talked to one lady, Katrina James. She's very good on that one to help others. So there are places like this. There are organizations who can help. There's meetup groups who can help to get the feeling of bondage with others. I even figured out somebody offered me to attend a singles group. I said, well, I'm married. I'm not looking for singles. But they said it's not about that. It's about people who are just by themselves in that country and are looking for company to do something in a group. So consider all of these type of things to get people around, and then ask those which came 2, 3, 4 years prior to them how they've done that, to learn from the mistakes of others or learn from the success of others, be inspired by that one. I think that would help. Surely there are also content groups on places like on Substack, on Medium articles where you can read that. I wrote one that you can maybe even add to the article, called Feeling Disconnected in a New Location. I published that on Medium maybe 1, 2 years after I came, and it's still valid because it shows exactly the steps I've taken that I discussed with other people, and you can make it successful. I also know someone who came the year prior to me. When I met him after 2 years here, that guy was here for 3 years at Sydney, and he managed to not know anyone in 3 years. But I would say, I know he was an introvert, like I was born into as well, but it wouldn't prevent from talking to people. You can find a place.
Mhm.
And
Gunnar,
there are so many places.
mm,
Look, there are so many places where people can go. I just think about, I attended the book launch to meet people over there. I go to a library to meet people over there. Or to sit in silence and figure out and observe what others are doing. And occasionally when you go to a cafe, you have a chance to talk to someone. There's so many opportunities, but it requires a bit of strategic thinking, ideally before coming.
Gunnar, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to hear your insight and experiences. I hope everyone listening will take away something meaningful from our conversation. So, Gunnar, where can people connect with you or follow your work online?
That's simple. If they know how to write my name, Gunnar Habitz, they can find me because combination of first and last name is just once in the world. I have a website, gunnarhabitz.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, always with the same handle of my last name, Gunnar Habitz, and even on Substack as well.
Habitz, Habitz. Is that right?
Yes, that's it exactly.
All
Like the
right.
English word habit, but with a Z.
Be sure to check out all of Gunnar resources. I put links to his social media and other platforms in the show notes. Take a few minutes to explore and see what resonates with you. And then feel free to share your thoughts and feedback in the comments. I read them whenever I can. So, Gunnar, we are the last part of today's conversation. I love to end this episode this way. I call it the last 30-second segment. Before we land off the plane, I want to leave our audience with something that stick, something that they can carry with them long after the episode is over. You think about those listening right now. Some might be at the crossroad, some might be struggling to find direction in their life. Some might have been told it's too late, and others might feel lost, overwhelmed, or wrestling with inner challenge every single day. And I want you to imagine that you could speak directly into their hearts and minds. Maybe you could leave them one piece of insight or one action to take right now. So, Gunnar, I give you the floor one last time. If you had just 30 seconds to inspire or motivate someone, what would be your final message you share with them?
My final message is this. Across your life, we are here to learn. I strongly believe in lifelong learning, but there
Mhm.
will be the moment when we have a chance to change parts of our life, then we need to learn to do one thing, and that is to unlearn. Whatever we took for granted, we take it aside, unlearn, and start new. Only with an open mind and curiosity, we can recognize, particularly when we go to another place, that life might be different over there. So we don't stick to old habits or old
Mhm.
mindsets, but apply new ones. That helps us to grow.
So beautiful. Gunner habits, everybody. So thank you, man, once again for coming for the second time. See you later. Have a great day.